Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my VCT Pacific Stage 2 Week 1 power rankings. Going to go through all 12 teams, rank them into these tiers here, and give a little bit of a recap of what they did in Stage 1, maybe some roster moves that they made depending on the teams, and what I think the outlook is for Stage 2 for all 12 teams in Pacific. If you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Really helps me out. Also, go check out my Twitter. Link is in the description. I've done player rankings on there pre-stage 2 for all 3 regions, EMEA, Americas, and Pacific. So you can go check that out, as well as I tweet out about other random stuff going on in the Valorant scene, as well as like some random other stuff that I'm interested in. I also stream on Twitch and right here on this YouTube channel. I've been doing a bit more just like random streams, playing like random games and whatnot. But I also will do VOD review streams in the future, as well as like random like other Valorant related, like Valorant esports related stuff, including like my top 10 players of all time list, which should be coming out in video form soon. That'll be my next video after this one probably, so stay tuned for that. As well as go check out my Discord. Link to that is also in the description. I just did a bit of a revamp to it, so if you're interested in maybe talking about some Valorant competitive stuff, getting notifications on there for all of my content, you can go check that out as well. And yeah, let's get right into it. All right, so we'll start with this bottom tier of teams that I think could make playoffs realistically, but in most of these teams' cases, probably will not end up making it. And that'll start with DFM, who made 0 changes heading into Stage 2 after they were arguably the worst team in Pacific during Split 1. So I honestly don't have too much hope for this team. I think they'll probably be better. I think they'll have a bit better of an idea of what they want to play in the current meta, as well as maybe some of their players regaining a little bit of confidence. Like, I felt like at points during the season, like Mei, Akame, Jen, and Jinbong, all at different points played like without a little bit of confidence that they should have been playing with, because I think all of them are very skilled and talented players, but Art, as an IGL here, doesn't really seem to be doing much in terms of the calling phase of the game, as well as like causing Jinbong to have to flex around a little bit more as well. I mean, that's more to do with Akame, I think. But like these comps, some of them just don't fit their team. Like Jinbong, he can play some initiator if you really, really need him to, but he is a Sentinel player through and through, and they are making him play Fade on, I think, a few maps during Split 1. So I'd like the roles to be a little bit figured out here. I'd just like to see some like actual good, confident play from the 4 young guys on this team, and maybe head into next year figuring out which ones you want to keep and which ones you want to let go of, as well as letting go of Art, in my opinion. Now, I probably don't think this team's gonna make playoffs. Like it says could make playoffs on this tier, but I do think they're in the same tier as some of these other teams that I think have potential to make the playoffs. Them I believe in the least, even though I am a massive believer in May. Like for reference, I bought the DFM Classic this year. That's how much I believe in May. But overall, I'm not a big believer in this team to actually like make it to the playoffs, especially with how stacked their group is. Like they have, I mean, literally every other team in their group I would consider good. So that just shows you how stacked Pacific is in general. Then we have Team Secret, who I actually quite liked some of their roster changes. They're going to bring in Kelly's, Nizzy, and ZesBW here to overhaul their roster. They're going to be moving Wild Oreo to Duelist. Envy's going to be playing more Scan Initiator for them. And Nizzy, while he was playing a little bit of like Flex Flash Initiator stuff and Challengers, I believe is going to be moving over to more of a hard Sentinel role, even though he did play a little bit of Deadlock in Tier 2. I think this roster is solid. I like that middle, middle of the pack core, I guess, which you'd call like Kelly's, Envy, and Nizzy. I think they're all very good players. Kelly's a little less so. He'll be IGLing here. Obviously, he's not going to have a ton of impact fragging wise, but he'll do his job. He had some nice moments for global, I think, even as a caller specifically in stage 1, and I think he will be a good player, especially on this Filipino team. Overall, My issue with the team, though, is with Wild Oreo on Duelist specifically. He played it a little bit in stage 1, but I wasn't super impressed with it. I thought he was fine as an opper. Like he was a decent player when he had an op in his hands, but the second he had to have a rifle while playing Duelist, he was just awful. So you'd like to see that improve quite a bit if he's going to actually be their Duelist of the future. But overall, I think this team is building for next year. But also, like, if they can get ahead of maybe a Nongshim and a Global, who I have ranked above them, I think they actually do have potential to make playoffs because this roster is fairly decent. Then we have the aforementioned Global Esports making two changes here, bringing in Udotan, or no, Udotan is moving over to Duelist, which is, I guess, part of their changes, but they're bringing in Yoman and Ban here, which are some interesting moves. I think the Yeoman pickup is good. He's going to be playing like Flash Initiator stuff and IGLing for this team, I believe. Yeah, Flash Initiator, a little bit of Viper here and there, and he's going to be IGLing. He is very good. I was very shocked when Gen G decided to cut him in place of Art to play Scan Initiator. Like, it felt like you could just keep him, maybe have Art come in, and if he's going to learn a new role, have him play Sentinel. That would have made sense to me, but that's a really good piece for Global to kind of steal him away. And then Ban, man, he's been in and out of tier 1, like different teams, and he's just never been good, like at all. So I don't really get that one. It feels like he's kind of just a recycled player, as sometimes Global ends up doing. He just kind of feels like a name at this point rather than anything else. I wouldn't really expect too much out of him. And then, honestly, my main issue with this team is when Udotan has played Duelist in, like, Tier 1, he has not looked good on it. Like, you go back to, like, Kickoff this year, he was awful on Duelist. Like, genuinely terrible playing Duelist for them during Kickoff when Patrick Fu had to miss time. I will say, this team's like biggest buff is the fact that they actually have a set 5 roster that they can head into the split with and hopefully make it through at the end with also their coach. They had a lot of like in and out stuff last split, so they could potentially, like, now having a solid set roster, I think could potentially take a jump up to maybe a decent team that can make playoffs, do a little bit there. And I think they have some potential there, but overall, I wouldn't really expect them to do anything this year. All right, it is the next day now from when I recorded the last section of this video, but we're back to talk about these mid-table teams, this lots of potential tier that I think is one singular team that I think has a large amount of potential to, like, I even think get up into like a team that could make champs in Pacific, but from what we've seen so far this year, you can't rate them that highly, and that's Zeta Division, who went through last split. I think they played like a little bit with Depp at the beginning of it, right? Yeah, they played like a few games with Depp, then brought in 1010, who was incredible when he came in to play against Talon. Like, he was awesome for this team, and honestly a fairly large upgrade on the Duelist role, where I was already pretty high on Depp. Then after that, in this, I think the Hero Esports Asian Champions League thing that they played, they brought in Depp to play Sentinel instead of Shota, which I think is also an upgrade. Not necessarily because I think Depp's best role is Sentinel or anything like that. I don't even think he'll be particularly amazing on that role. I just think he'll be better in terms of his experience and mechanical ability than Shota in that role. And I think that'll be an upgrade for this team. So overall, like, I really, really like the Zeta Division team. I like every piece in there. I like 1010. Klus, I think, is a pretty good player. The IGLing, I think, can get a little bit better, but still pretty good. XDLL is very nice. I very much believe in him, even though he's not been, like, amazing so far this year. Sugar Zero's been solid for the past few years. I don't think he's like a bad player by any means. He could be upgraded on if they really want to, but honestly, I think the individual skill, that's pretty decent, as well as the experience from him is very nice. And then obviously we already talked about depth. So there's a lot of potential in this team to go up. I don't fully believe in them to make it to champs or anything like that, but I think they absolutely could, and they have a large amount of potential to do that. Then we have teams that I think are solid, not great, but will probably make playoffs and potentially win a game there, but I wouldn't expect to do too much more. And that'll start with Talon, who, I mean, made no changes. They might be making some changes in terms of like roles and stuff, obviously, because they do that like every split for whatever reason. But overall, like, Talon's going to be fine. They could sneak into champs if some other teams fall apart above them, but honestly, I think there's clearly 5 teams above them, and maybe even more than that, because I have them 8th. Like, I think there's 5 teams that I think clearly are above them in terms of likelihood to make champs, whether that be how good they are or like their like actual like champs points stuff and everything like that. Like, I think Talon's not in the greatest spot. And then the other team that I have over them in this tier is Nongshim. I just realized their logo is like inside Zetas, which I did not mean to do. But oops, I don't know. I'm not gonna fix that. It'll just piss you guys off probably. But I think Nongshim is in a similar boat. They're solid. I think they'll probably make it to playoffs and be pretty decent. But I really don't have too much else to say. Like, RB coming into this team is genuinely a big upgrade. Now, did they drop the correct player for RB? No, they definitely should have went with what's his name? They should have kept Margaret and cut Damby, in my opinion, and then I would actually feel that this roster's in a very, very good place. With RB playing mainly the duelist, which, I mean, he has struggled on a little bit in the past, but that was mainly at international events and stuff like that. And I think regionally he would be completely fine playing the duelist and actually get this team to stay in VCT. Then you could maybe redo some of the roles a bit for next year while you're able to stay in. But yeah, I mean, I think this team's solid. They have a bunch of very good players. They just gotta kind of get a good read on the meta and figure out what they want to play and stuff like that before I can rate them as a team with any large amount of potential to even go to champs, in my opinion. All right, now into our top 5 teams, and that'll start with this tier of teams that I just don't fully know what the hell is going on with them. Like, between weird roster changes, weird results at certain events, these 3 teams in this tier are very weird, and I think 2 of them will probably make champs, and then one of them is going to feel a little bit cheated out depending on who it ends up being. And it'll start with, oh wait, sorry, there's 4 teams in this tier, but still, same thing. Boom, at number 6. Sorry. I mean, they were very, very, very good during stage 1, the regular season. Like, this was the best team in Pacific throughout the 5 weeks of the regular season. They went 5-0, beating Gen G, Paper Rex, DRX during that stretch. Even Gen G 2-0, and kind of destroyed Gen G in that game. I guess not really. Yeah, it was 13-8. They destroyed him on Ascent, but not on Haven. Haven was genuinely close. But like, Famous was looking like one of the better players in the region. So was DOS9 and Berserks, and I thought NC Slasher was a really, really good supportive initiator player. Shiro was calling a really nice game. And then playoffs came around and they just completely shit the bed. They got kind of ran over by Gen G, and then also ran over by Paper Rex. They just looked very nervous, not confident, not making the correct decisions. And I don't necessarily think that's going to like fully continue. Like, I think some of their players will regain their form, specifically like DOS9, I think. Still played fairly okay in those playoff games. I think he'll play better than he played in those playoff games. He'll play about maybe a little bit less than he was during stage 1. I think this team will be similar to what they were during the stage 1 regular season, just tuned down maybe like 10 or 15%.
on an individual scale, and maybe a little bit more on a meta read scale, because I don't know exactly how much I would favor this team in a double sentinel or like a double controller like Viper Omen kind of thing. I don't really know how high I would rate them in that kind of scenario. So we'll just have to wait and see with Boom. I did consider moving them down a tier, but I do think that they were good enough during the regular season to warrant being in this top tier and in the top half of Pacific, which is insane that that's in the top two tiers. That just shows how stacked this region really is. Then I have T1 at number 5. They are another very, very weird team. I had them my number 1 ranked team going into playoffs still. I really just banked on the fact that the regular season was maybe a little bit of not necessarily like a fluke, but like, oh, they don't really care about this. They're kind of saving some stuff for playoffs. And they were saving stuff for playoffs. They did change some stuff up, but the changes that they made were really bad. Um, like Izu moving over to Viper with Meteor playing Teo when they could have just swapped those two out for each other. I mean, this team was just not good during stage 1 after winning Bangkok. I think if they can come into stage 2 with a bit, I mean, specifically a bit better of a meta read, I think that was their main issue. Playing more double sentinel with like Stacks playing like scan initiator stuff for them, Izu playing the secondary sentinel, and Meteor playing that main sentinel. I think this team could be pretty solid. But honestly, I think a lot of this team's run was due to them being able to play a lot of double duelists, and I think they'll be able to do that during this meta, but I just don't think it's as good as the double sentinel stuff, and I think they'll kind of get a bit comp diffed in some of these games, just playing double duelists all the time. Like being able to put Meteor on that ISO, being able to put um, Izu on the Yoru and Op a lot. Like that was really good for those two players. Now I do think Izu will still be good no matter what he ends up playing. Um, but yeah, this team's in kind of just a weird spot right now. Another team in a weird spot is RRQ. And I think a lot of people will chalk up their Masters Toronto performance to choking. And I do think quite a bit of that is true. But also at the same time, like they just they didn't know how to play, not even necessarily without Teo, but not playing against Teo, I think, was kind of their thing. When like they're playing a style for like heavy retake against like double sentinel comps and stuff like that, and it's just not like they're getting just ran over. Specifically against Wolves was really frustrating to watch. And then like on Ascent, that was kind of a big deal. And then on Icebox, they kind of just choked it away after losing the first map to Wolves, kind of thing. So it was a mix of both. I still think they're a top 4 team in Pacific. I still think Jumkin's insane. He's probably, I mean, he was probably the best player regionally, and I think I would actually favor him to be the best player in Pacific during stage 2, even. Maybe not him, but maybe like Forsaken, Texture. You could sneak those guys in there if you want. Maybe not sneak those guys in there, but like you could say those guys would be better. But I think Jemkin's very firmly in the top 3 right now, in Pacific. And yeah, I mean, I think RRQ will be fine. It just really depends on if they're able to transition to playing more like double controller and double sentinel stuff, or maybe even just fully leaning into double duelists with like Meunier on a secondary duelist and then Texture playing the main one. I just think this team needs to go back to playing a lot more Yoru than they did um, during Toronto. Then we have DRX in number 3. Now, this is probably my hottest take, is that DRX will be like, I think DRX is almost a lock to make champs, in my opinion. I just think, like, between the fact that they've been just on the cusp of making these international events, or I guess no, they literally made Bangkok. How did I completely forget about that? But they looked amazing to begin the year, and then they were just on the cusp of making it again, but kind of tossed it away a little bit with some weird roster stuff going on in the middle of the season, Estrella coming in and stuff like that. Now, they're doing some more weird roster stuff with like, oh god, what was happening? DRX Valorant. Let's see. Because they had a whole post today of Flashback and Flicker, one of their academy players, coming back into the roster and them doing some weird ass 7-man roster thing. Not exactly sure how that's gonna work, but if they stick with the 5 that they played with, which they probably won't because it's DRX, I think this team will get significantly better and be firmly a top 3 team in Pacific that can contend for like playoffs at champs. I think that's a pretty solid expectation for DRX, and I think even without that, like I think this team is just so consistently like a top 4 team in Pacific, no matter the players on their roster. I think they'll probably make champs and probably make playoffs at champs depending on what group they get thrown into. So I think overall my DRX take is it doesn't really matter what the roster is. I think they'll still be a top 3 team. I think they'll pass up your RRQs, your T1s, your Booms, like teams like that who performed really well in stage 1, but I think will fall off a little bit heading into stage 2. Then our top 2 teams pretty easily. You got Genji number 2, PaperX number 1. PaperX ironically moving up 8 spots from where they were in my last power ranking, which was just before playoffs, which I think is really funny. That's why there's a lot of -1s within here. Obviously, the DFM one is not related to PaperX, but like Zeta, Nongshim, and Talon all moving down 1 spot just because PaperX moved up above them. I mean, I don't really have much to say about these 2 teams. Like Genji, I don't think they'll choke within Pacific, unlike what they did at an international level against Wolves and G2. And then PaperX, I don't think they're far and away the best team in Pacific, even though Genji did get like 5th, 6th, and they won. Like I still think Genji is in a similar tier to PaperX, but PaperX is one of your like title contending teams for champs, and I think Genji is in that bucket as well. So this is my power rankings. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Who you guys would have even number 1. Like if you would have Genji number 1, let me know what you think and why. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.